Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead as he crawled under the massive alien vessel. The ship's hull stretched above him like a metallic mountain, its surface scarred by whatever battle had brought it crashing down on this remote planet. He'd been working for 6 hours straight, and the twin suns were already casting long shadows across the rocky landscape. The distress beacon had led him here 3 days ago. As one of the few human mechanics certified to work on alien technology, Marcus often found himself in situations like this. What he hadn't expected was to find a Zephyrian cruiser, one of the most advanced ships in the galaxy, lying broken in what appeared to be a crater of perfectly smooth stone. The stone beneath the ship felt warm against his back, almost alive. Strange patterns were carved into its surface, spiraling outward from where the ship had landed. Marcus had noticed them when he first arrived, but assumed they were natural formations. Now, as he worked, the patterns seemed to pulse with a faint, rhythmic light. His diagnostic scanner beeped, finally identifying the problem. The ship's quantum drive had suffered a cascade failure, something that should have been impossible given Zephyrian engineering standards. The crystalline core that powered their faster-than-light travel had cracked in 3 places, its internal matrix scrambled beyond normal repair protocols. Marcus smiled. This was exactly the kind of challenge he lived for. While most mechanics would declare the ship a total loss, he had something others didn't. An intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics that had earned him a reputation across 12 star systems. His colleagues often joked that he could fix anything with spare parts and pure stubbornness. He pulled out his toolkit, a collection of both human and alien instruments that he'd modified over the years. The first step was to stabilize the quantum matrix before it could deteriorate further. As he worked, connecting bypass circuits and rerouting power flows, he began to whistle softly. The sound echoed strangely in the crater, bouncing off the smooth stone walls and returning to him changed, as if something else was harmonizing with his tune. Marcus paused, listening carefully, but heard only the wind rustling through the sparse vegetation that clung to the crater's rim. Hours passed as he delved deeper into the ship's systems. The Zephyrians built their technology like living organisms, with systems that could adapt and heal themselves under normal circumstances. But this damage was beyond the ship's natural repair capabilities. It needed the kind of creative problem-solving that only a sapient mind could provide. As the larger sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, Marcus heard it, a low rumbling sound that seemed to come from the stone itself. He paused his work, lying still beneath the ship and listening. The sound came again, deeper this time, accompanied by what felt like a vibration through the ground. Something was moving out there. Marcus carefully slid out from under the ship and peered over its edge. What he saw made his blood freeze. Creatures were emerging from caves he hadn't noticed before, caves that opened like wounds in the crater's walls. They moved with fluid grace despite their massive size, their scales reflecting the dying sunlight in brilliant displays of color. Dragons. Actual living dragons. They stood twice as tall as Marcus, with elongated necks and powerful wings folded against their backs. Their scales shifted color as they moved, creating patterns that seemed to communicate meaning he couldn't understand. Most terrifying of all were their eyes, intelligent, ancient, and currently focused entirely on him. The lead dragon was the largest, its scales a deep crimson that darkened to black at the edges. It approached slowly, deliberately, its massive claws clicking against the stone with each step. When it spoke, its voice resonated through Marcus's bones rather than his ears. "Human," the dragon said, though its mouth didn't move in a way that should have produced human words. "You work upon the vessel that has violated our most sacred ground." Marcus slowly raised his hands, showing he was unarmed. His mind raced, trying to process what he was seeing. Dragons weren't supposed to exist. They were legends, stories told by primitive cultures before they learned to navigate the stars. Yet here they were, clearly intelligent and speaking standard galactic. "I didn't know this was sacred ground," Marcus said carefully. "I was responding to a distress beacon. The ship was already here when I arrived." More dragons emerged from the caves, forming a circle around the crater. Marcus counted at least 20, maybe more. Their scales rippled with colors that seemed to express emotion, deep purples that felt like anger, sharp yellows that suggested suspicion, and underneath it all, a pulsing red that he instinctively knew meant danger. The crimson dragon tilted its massive head, studying Marcus with eyes that held depths he couldn't fathom. "For 10,000 years, no vessel has dared to touch the Heartstone. The Zephyrians knew better. The Korthax knew better. Even the warlike Brakthari respected our boundaries." "Heartstone?" Marcus looked down at the smooth stone beneath his feet, suddenly understanding. "This entire crater is the resting place of our ancestors," another dragon interrupted, this one with scales of deep blue-green. "Their essence flows through the stone, giving it life and purpose. Your alien ship has anchored itself to our most holy shrine." Marcus felt his heart pounding as he began to grasp the magnitude of the situation. He wasn't just dealing with damaged alien technology, he was standing at the center of a religious site that predated human space travel. The patterns carved into the stone weren't natural formations. They were memorial inscriptions, each spiral representing generations of dragon history. "I can remove the ship," he said quickly. "Once I repair the quantum drive, I can have it off your sacred ground within hours." The crimson dragon moved closer, its presence overwhelming. When it breathed, Marcus could feel the heat wash over him like a wave. "The ship has been here for 7 cycles of the moons. Its quantum field has begun to merge with the Heartstone's natural energies. Simply flying away will not undo the contamination." A smaller dragon with golden scales stepped forward. "The contamination spreads even now," she said, her voice carrying notes of deep sadness. "Can you not see how the memorial spirals have begun to fade?" Marcus looked more carefully at the stone patterns around the ship. What he had taken for natural variation in the light was actually a gradual dimming of the carved lines. Where the ship's hull made contact with the stone, the ancient inscriptions were becoming harder to see, as if something was slowly erasing them. "The quantum field," Marcus whispered, understanding flooding through him. "It's interfering with whatever energy source powers your memorial." "Powers and preserves," the crimson dragon corrected. "The memories of our people live in this stone. When the patterns fade, so do their essences. If this continues, 10,000 years of our history will be lost forever." The weight of responsibility settled on Marcus's shoulders like a physical force. He wasn't just fixing a broken ship anymore. He was racing against time to prevent the destruction of an entire civilization's ancestral memory. And based on the way the dragons were watching him, their patience was already wearing thin. "How long do I have?" he asked. The golden dragon looked up at the sky, where the first moon was already beginning to rise. "When both moons reach their zenith together, the contamination will become permanent. The quantum energies will have had time to fully integrate with the Heartstone's matrix." Marcus did the calculation in his head. Based on this planet's rotational period and the current lunar positions, he had maybe 18 hours. 18 hours to perform repairs that should take at least 3 days, all while working under the watchful eyes of creatures who could probably incinerate him with a thought. He looked back at the ship, then at the dragons surrounding him. "I'll need some things from my shuttle, tools, replacement parts, and I'll need to work without interruption." The crimson dragon considered this. "You may retrieve what you require, but know this, human. If you fail, or if you attempt to leave before the contamination is cleansed, this sacred ground will become your grave." As Marcus walked toward his shuttle, Parked on the crater's rim, he could feel 20 pairs of ancient eyes following his every movement. The weight of their gaze was nothing compared to the weight of their expectations. He had volunteered for this rescue mission expecting to fix a broken ship and collect a substantial salvage fee. Instead, he found himself responsible for preserving the cultural heritage of a species that shouldn't even exist. But as he gathered his equipment, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years: genuine excitement. This wasn't just another repair job. This was a puzzle that would test every skill he'd developed over his career, a problem that demanded not just technical expertise, but creative thinking and cultural sensitivity. He might be surrounded by ferocious alien dragons on sacred ground, but he was exactly where he belonged. Marcus returned to the crater carrying a portable fusion generator and several cases of specialized equipment. The dragons had arranged themselves in a loose circle around the ship, some lying down while others perched on ledges carved into the crater walls. Their scales continued to shift color in patterns that he was beginning to recognize as a form of communication. The Crimson leader watched as Marcus set up his equipment near the ship's main access port. "You work differently than others of your kind," the dragon observed. "Most humans rush toward solutions without understanding the problem." "Most humans haven't worked with quantum technology for 20 years, Marcus replied, connecting power feeds to his diagnostic array. "This kind of repair requires patience and precision. One wrong adjustment could destabilize the entire drive core." He pulled up a holographic display showing the ship's internal systems. The quantum drive occupied the vessel's central core, surrounded by layers of shielding and stabilization equipment. The crystalline matrix that controlled faster-than-light jumps was visible as a complex web of energy patterns, currently fractured and chaotic. "The damage is worse than I initially thought," Marcus admitted. "When the quantum field collapsed, it created feedback loops throughout the ship's systems. It's not just the main drive crystal. The entire quantum matrix needs to be rebuilt from scratch." The golden dragon moved closer, studying the holographic display with obvious intelligence. "These patterns," she said, pointing with one delicate claw at the energy flows. "They remind me of the memorial spirals. Both seem to channel and preserve essential forces." Marcus looked between the hologram and the stone patterns beneath his feet. The dragon was right. There were similarities in the way both systems organized and directed energy flow. "Your people understand quantum mechanics?" "We understand the dance between matter and spirit," the golden dragon replied. "What you call quantum energy, we know as the force that connects all living things across time and space. The Heartstone focuses and preserves this energy, allowing our ancestors' memories to remain accessible to the living." This gave Marcus an idea, one so audacious that he almost dismissed it immediately. But as he studied the patterns more carefully, he began to see possibilities that hadn't existed before. "What if I could tune the ship's quantum field to harmonize with the Heartstone instead of interfering with it?" he asked slowly. "Instead of contamination, we could create resonance." The Crimson Dragon's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Marcus began sketching diagrams in the air, his excitement growing as the solution took shape. "Every quantum system has a natural frequency, like a musical note. Right now, the ship's frequency is clashing with the Heartstone's, creating destructive interference. But if I can adjust the ship's quantum matrix to match the Heartstone's harmonic signature, the two systems would strengthen each other instead of fighting," the golden dragon finished. "But would this not change the nature of the ship itself?" "It would," Marcus admitted. "The ship would become part of your memorial system while it's here. But when it leaves, it would carry a harmonic imprint that could actually enhance its quantum capabilities." He spent the next hour explaining the technical details, surprised to find that the dragons understood concepts that challenged even experienced physicists. Their perspective on quantum mechanics was different from human theory, more intuitive, more focused on the interconnectedness of all energy systems. but no less sophisticated. The Crimson leader conferred with the others in their color language, scales shifting through complex patterns that Marcus was beginning to interpret as intense debate. Finally, the great dragon turned back to him. "The risk is considerable," it said. "If you fail, you could damage both the ship and the Heartstone beyond repair. If I don't try, the contamination will destroy your memorial anyway," Marcus pointed out. "This way, there's at least a chance of saving both." Marcus began working with an intensity he'd never felt before. Using a combination of human engineering tools and dragon-guided intuition about quantum harmonics, he started rebuilding the ship's drive core. The first step was to map the Heartstone's exact frequency signature, something that required him to place sensors directly against the carved memorial patterns. As he worked, the dragons shared stories about their ancestors, explaining how each spiral represented not just individual dragons, but entire bloodlines stretching back to their species' earliest days. The patterns weren't random art. They were a three-dimensional database encoded in quantum fluctuations within the stone itself. "My great-grandfather's essence rests in this spiral," the golden dragon said, indicating a particularly complex pattern near the ship's landing strut. "He was a scholar who first developed the mathematics behind quantum harmonics. Perhaps his knowledge can guide your work." Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation as he placed his sensor against that particular spiral. For a moment, it seemed as if another consciousness was touching his mind, sharing insights about energy manipulation that human science had never discovered. The sensation was brief but profound, leaving him with a clearer understanding of how to tune the ship's systems. Hours passed as he worked through the night. The moons rose higher, their combined light creating an eerie illumination that seemed to make the memorial patterns glow more brightly. Marcus found himself falling into a rhythm that felt almost meditative, adjusting quantum frequencies while listening to the dragon's harmonized vocalizations that helped him understand the Heartstone's natural resonances. The ship's quantum matrix began to stabilize as he carefully rebuilt it according to the new harmonic principles. Instead of the chaotic energy patterns from before, the display now showed organized flows that pulsed in sync with the memorial spirals beneath the ship. "It's working," Marcus breathed, watching as the quantum fields began to strengthen rather than interfere with each other. The ship's drive is actually drawing power from the Heartstone while feeding energy back into the memorial system. The golden dragon moved closer to observe his work. "The ancestors would be pleased," she said softly. "You have created something beautiful, a bridge between your technology and our sacred traditions." But just as success seemed within reach, alarms began sounding from Marcus's equipment. The quantum matrix was stabilizing too quickly, building toward a resonance cascade that could either perfect the harmony or destroy everything within a kilometer radius. "The feedback loop is accelerating," Marcus said, his hands flying over the controls. "The ship's systems are trying to match the Heartstone's energy output, but they're not designed to handle that much power." The Crimson Dragon stepped forward. "What do you need?" "I need to moderate the energy flow manually," Marcus replied. "But that means someone has to be in direct contact with both the ship's quantum core and the Heartstone's central matrix simultaneously. The energy levels would be lethal to human physiology." The dragons exchanged rapid color communications. Then the golden dragon moved to the ship's access hatch. "Our people have lived with quantum energy for millennia. We can survive levels that would destroy other species." "You'd be willing to risk that?" Marcus asked, amazed. "To preserve our ancestors' memory and help you complete your work?" "Yes." Working together, Marcus and the Golden Dragon created a living circuit between the ship and the Heartstone. Marcus operated the ship's controls, while the dragon served as a conscious regulator, using her natural affinity for quantum energy to balance the flows between the two systems. The sensation of working in perfect harmony with an alien consciousness was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. He could feel the dragon's thoughts touching his own, sharing her understanding of energy patterns that humans had only begun to theorize about. Together, they guided the quantum matrix through its final calibrations. As the first moon reached its zenith, the ship's systems stabilized in perfect harmony with the Heartstone. The memorial spirals blazed with renewed light, their patterns more vivid and complex than before. The ship itself hummed with a new kind of energy, its quantum drive enhanced by its connection to 10,000 years of preserved dragon consciousness. "We did it," Marcus whispered, hardly believing what they had accomplished. "The ship is ready to fly, and the memorial is not only preserved but actually strengthened." The dragons around the crater began a harmonized song that seemed to make the very air vibrate with joy. Their scales shifted through brilliant patterns of gold and silver that Marcus now recognized as expressions of celebration and gratitude. But even as they celebrated their success, Marcus realized that this was only the beginning of something much larger. The techniques they had developed here could revolutionize both human quantum technology and dragon memorial preservation. More importantly, they had proven that cooperation between vastly different species could achieve what neither could accomplish alone. The Crimson Dragon approached as the song ended. "You have done more than repair a ship and preserve our memorial," it said solemnly. "You have shown us that the barriers between species exist only in our minds." Marcus looked up at the second moon, now approaching its own zenith. Soon the critical period would end, and the quantum harmony they had created would be permanently stabilized. The ship would be free to leave, but it would carry with it something unprecedented, a quantum signature that bridged human technology and dragon wisdom. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. The golden dragon's scales shimmered with patterns that Marcus was learning to read as contemplation. "Now we must decide whether this bridge between our peoples will remain a single achievement or become the foundation for something greater." As the second moon reached its zenith, the quantum harmonization became permanent. The ship's hull gleamed with new energy patterns that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the memorial spirals beneath it. Marcus ran final diagnostics, confirming what he could hardly believe. The repairs were not only complete, but had actually enhanced the ship's capabilities beyond its original specifications. "The quantum efficiency is up 30%, Marcus reported to the assembled dragons. "The drive core is more stable than when it was first built, and the harmonic resonance should allow for faster-than-light jumps with unprecedented precision." The Crimson Dragon leader studied the readings with obvious satisfaction. "And our memorial?" Marcus gestured to the Heartstone patterns around them. The carved spirals now glowed with a steady, warm light that seemed to emanate from deep within the stone itself. "The quantum bridge has actually amplified the memorial's preservation capabilities. The energy matrix is now self-sustaining and will continue to grow stronger over time." What Marcus didn't say was that the memorial had become something entirely new. During the harmonization process, he had sensed the vast repository of knowledge stored within the quantum patterns, not just memories of individual dragons, but accumulated wisdom spanning millennia. Mathematics, philosophy, scientific discoveries, artistic achievements, all preserved in a format that could potentially be accessed and studied by other species. The Golden Dragon seemed to read his thoughts. "You have realized the true significance of what we have accomplished," she said. "This is no longer just a memorial to the past. It has become a bridge to the future." Over the next few hours, as the enhanced systems stabilized, the dragons revealed more about their civilization than they had shared with any outsider in recorded history. They were not simply another spacefaring species. They were guardians of knowledge, collectors and preservers of wisdom from across the galaxy. For 50,000 years, we have watched younger races rise and fall, the Crimson Dragon explained. We have seen brilliant civilizations destroy themselves through war, ignorance, or hubris. Our sacred sites like this one exist not just to honor our own ancestors, but to preserve the knowledge of all species before it can be lost forever. Marcus began to understand the true scope of what lay beneath his feet. The Heartstone wasn't just a dragon memorial, it was a galactic library, containing preserved fragments of hundreds of extinct civilizations. The quantum harmonization had not only repaired the ship and preserved the dragon memories, it had made this vast repository of knowledge accessible for the first time in millennia. "Why share this with me?" Marcus asked. "Why trust a human with such secrets?" The golden dragon's scales shifted to patterns that Marcus now recognized as deep thoughtfulness. "Because your species shows promise," she replied. "Humans adapt quickly, learn from mistakes, and most importantly, you understand the value of cooperation over conquest. Today, you proved this by choosing to preserve our memorial rather than simply removing the obstacle to your work." The dragons had been watching humanity for decades, studying their expansion into space and their interactions with other species. Unlike many younger races that sought to dominate or exploit, humans seemed genuinely interested in learning and building alliances. The repair of the ship had been as much a test as a necessity. "There are others like you," the Crimson Dragon continued. "Humans who understand that true advancement comes through collaboration, not competition. We believe your species is ready to become custodians of preserved knowledge." This revelation transformed everything Marcus thought he knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. They weren't just another young species stumbling around the cosmos. They were being considered for one of the most important responsibilities in galactic civilization. The ship's quantum drive chose that moment to complete its startup sequence, filling the crater with harmonious resonance that seemed to make the very air sing. Marcus felt the vibration in his bones, a sound that somehow conveyed both immense power and perfect peace. "The ship is ready for departure," he announced. "But before I go, I need to ask, what happens next? Do I simply return to my normal work and pretend none of this happened?" The dragons exchanged their color communications, a rapid flow of patterns that Marcus was beginning to interpret as urgent debate. Finally, the Crimson Leader turned back to him. "You have a choice," it said. "You can take the ship and leave, carrying only the knowledge of what you have accomplished here. Or you can become something more, an ambassador between our peoples and a guardian of the ancient wisdom we preserve." The Golden Dragon stepped forward. "If you choose the path of guardianship, you will be trained in the deeper mysteries of quantum harmonics. You will learn to access the preserved knowledge of extinct civilizations and help us identify others worthy of this trust. But once you accept this responsibility, there is no returning to your former life." Marcus looked around the crater at the dragons, watching him with ancient eyes full of wisdom and hope. Then he looked at the ship, humming with new energy that represented the marriage of human ingenuity and dragon knowledge. The choice seemed obvious. "I accept," he said simply. What followed was unlike anything in recorded history. Over the next several days, the dragons began sharing knowledge that human science was still centuries from discovering. Marcus learned that consciousness itself was a form of quantum energy that could be preserved, transferred, and even enhanced through proper harmonic manipulation. The techniques he had used to repair the ship were just the beginning of a science that could revolutionize life itself. But more importantly, he learned about responsibility. The dragons showed him other memorial sites across the galaxy, each one containing the preserved essence of civilizations that had trusted them with their final legacy. The weight of that trust was immense. To become a guardian meant accepting responsibility for knowledge that represented billions of lives across thousands of years. The ship became the first vessel in a new class of hybrid technology, capable of traveling not just through space, but through the quantum dimensions where preserved consciousness resided. Marcus learned to navigate these deeper realms, accessing information that could solve problems plaguing multiple species. When he finally departed the sacred crater, Marcus carried with him more than just a repaired ship. He carried the hopes of an entire dragon civilization and the responsibility for preserving knowledge that could shape the future of all spacefaring species. The Crimson Dragon offered final words as Marcus prepared for departure. "Remember," it said, "true strength lies not in the power to destroy, but in the wisdom to preserve. You go now as a bridge between worlds, carrying the dreams of the past into the promise of the future." As Marcus engaged the enhanced quantum drive, the ship lifted off with an entirely new kind of propulsion. The harmonic resonance with the Heartstone created a connection that would persist across any distance, linking him permanently to the vast network of preserved knowledge. Flying away from the crater, Marcus realized that his life as a simple mechanic was over. He was now something unprecedented, a human guardian of galactic memory, trusted with secrets that could either elevate his species to new heights or destroy them if misused. The responsibility was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. But as he set course for human space, Marcus felt a deep sense of purpose that he had never experienced before. He had volunteered for a routine salvage mission and ended up discovering his true calling. Behind him, the memorial crater blazed with renewed light as the dragons added new patterns to the Heartstone. Spirals that told the story of a human who had bridged two civilizations and opened a path to a future where knowledge would never again be lost to time. The ship's quantum drive hummed with perfect harmony as it jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying Marcus toward a destiny that would transform not just his own life, but the relationship between every intelligent species in the galaxy. The age of isolated civilizations was ending, and the era of shared wisdom was about to begin. In the depths of space, other dragon memorials began to resonate with the new harmonic frequency, awakening after centuries of dormancy. The network of preserved knowledge was coming alive again, and humanity was about to discover just how vast and wonderful the universe truly was.